Welcome today to Blockchain Commons SIlicon Salon. Thank you all for joining this first event to try to puzzle out how to find a future in semiconductors for cryptocurrencies and other cryptography. So thank you again for joining us. This is a collaborative session. We have a collaborative note capability. In particular, Brian is going to use his very famous ability to let's see, it wants to open up everything, doesn't it? 1 second, dealing with the Zoom UI thing. There we go. So those are all in the Zoom chat. Ask in the Zoom chat if you missed the links. We can send you them again. So first off, who am I? My name's Christopher Allen. On Twitter and GitHub and a lot of other places as @ChristopherA. I first started working in this industry in the very end of the 80s. When this was all brand new. In particular, I was involved with freeing up the patent license for RSA-Ref, which was used by a lot of early startups in the internet space, Red Hat, PGP, et cetera. So was deeply involved in that. In the early 90s, I ended up taking over the SSL reference project from Netscape. We published SSL Ref 3.0, and then later I ended up becoming editor and co-author of TLS 1.0. So I've been doing this for a long time, and one of my significant clients back then was DigiCash. So you could say I've been doing digital currencies for 30 years. In the aughts, I was CTO at Certicom. That's where elliptic curves were invented, and kind of had a side hobby as a adjunct professor in an MBA program. In the teens, I was at Blackphone, an early startup with John Callis, who is with us today, to try to do a more secure, more private Android phone. I also started rebooting Web of Trust and coined self-sovereign identity and the 10 principles of self-sovereign identity. And I also was a principal architect at Blockstream. And then most recently, I've been a co-author of the W3C decentralized identifier standard. And in my role here today, I'm principal architect at Blockchain Commons. So what is Blockchain Commons? Well, our goal is to bring together blockchain and Web3 stakeholders to kind of help them work together to develop interoperable infrastructure. We really want to focus on decentralized solutions where everybody wins. That's really the focus of Blockchain Commons. And we are also a neutral party. We're a not-for-profit. And we'd say our larger mission is to enable people to control their own digital destiny. The problem we're trying to solve is this one. You've seen this cartoon for a while now. There is all these dependencies, all this technical debt that we keep on piling up on top of everything else. And then there's one key, very fragile portion that is being maintained by someone somewhere. We saw this with Heartbleed. We've seen this with other situations in the past, and it is also a security threat when supply chain and other things are not financially supported, and that one little bit needs just a little fix, and it doesn't happen. So what do? Well, we work with the blockchain and Web3 communities to identify problems and assess needs. So that really is what we're going to do today in this salon, is really try to focus on what are the problems and needs and requirements. From that, we're going to collaboratively engineer interoperable specifications, of which I've been doing those for 30 years. We want to together evangelize these solutions to the ecosystem. And we want to support all of our different partners with reference code and test suites so that they can develop and make available their own implementations. I've done this before: RSA Ref, TLS, OAuth, FIDO, DIDs, verifiable credentials, and most recently at Blockchain Commons with standards, best practices for smart custody, air gap URs and QRs, and a number of other things you will find at our GitHub. Who are you? Well, we have a lot of different people here. We have Silicon designers, we have Crossbar, Tropic Square, Supranational, all involved in designing semiconductors. We have hardware wallet manufacturers, including proxy devices and foundation devices and proxy, who are taking those chips and implementing cryptography with them. We have a number of people in the community that are involved in other aspects of the ecosystem. Bitmark with NFTs, on-chain capital with collaborative custody. We have a variety of advocacy organizations that support us, including Blockchain Bird and the Human Rights Foundation. And there are a number of people here in the meeting today who are cryptographic engineers and cryptographers. Our problem. Well, leveraging secrets held on silicon chips is really important as a root of trust method. We've learned that over the last couple of decades, that this is one of the best ways to protect our security, is to have this root of trust. Unfortunately, the existing chips don't support modern cryptography. A lot of standard orgs are kind of rejecting the needs, in particular of the cryptocurrency ecosystem, but I would also argue they're rejecting the needs of a lot of the more modern approaches to cryptography. The capital costs and lead times for chips are really high. It's years to develop things, very large upfront costs. And then within that, there's very inefficient IP licensing. It creates a lot of friction, not only for developers, but ultimately the whole ecosystem in trying to get solutions to our problems. And a lot of this is due to current financial incentives really failing to create a robust, secure infrastructure. And this is at all levels, not just the hardware, but wallets and all the network stack bottom that we need for all of our stuff to function. In addition, there's something I call the NASCAR problem. This particular screenshot is from Sparrow. This is simply the blue B through E electrum part of a very long list of all the different cryptographic wallets, software, hardware, et cetera, that it supports, and all the different variants for it. And this is just a beginning. I mean, there's a whole bunch of startups that ought to be in this list, or new capabilities that ought to be in this list and are not. This is the NASCAR problem. And we've seen this before. I mean, 2 decades ago, you may have seen one of these screens where you could log in with OpenID. That was kind of this user-centric promise that led to too many choices. I mean, here we see, the generic OpenID, but then we see Google, which had a slight variant on it, and Yahoo and AOL, and then we have all these little buttons down below if you knew what they were. It just got larger and larger. Another problem was that the big providers were able to then subvert the protocol due to weak interoperability standards. Basically, OAuth did not require interoperability. You could do half of OAuth and not the other half. That, combined with market power of Google, Facebook, Apple, and some of the other biggies, ended up meaning that they dominated the space. And today, you still see, now 3 buttons for these kind of social logins, maybe 2. And Apple has recently returned with their own login, only because you can't ship your app in the App Store unless with a federated login unless you also support theirs. So that's using their market dominance to put their NASCAR logo on all these logins. I don't want to repeat this pattern. It's going to cause a lot of problems down the line. So what is our answer? Well, follow these things that we've done before for identification and assessment, to collaborate together, to engineer and evangelize our solutions, and then ultimately support them for the long term. So to do this, we want to define use cases and requirements. That's part of what we're going to be doing today. We want to identify essential features for new cryptography, in particular for Silicon Logic, but also prioritize them. We want to create an ecosystem roadmap to support continued investment. Many of you are going out and trying to get capital for your companies, for your solutions. Being able to tell a better ecosystem story and how big this opportunity is will be useful for us all. We really want everything to be interoperable and future-proof. That serves the whole ecosystem. And in particular today, because we've done this several times before and ultimately had things become centralized, we really want to eliminate privilege points within the ecosystem. We want to limit the ability to subvert the shared protocols. And that's an important part of what Blockchain Commons is trying to achieve in all of our work. What are we doing today? Well, the process is that we're going to have multiple presentations on silicon hardware, both from the chip designer perspective, but also from the vendor using these chips perspective. We will then go into 6 open topics and have a facilitated discussion about those topics. And it'll be everything from what kind of cryptography is most important to you, what are the pain points you have, et cetera. So we're going to be doing that after the presentations. And then finally, at the end of this session, decide on next steps for collaboration. Do we want to have another salon? Do we want to focus on one particular area, et cetera? So this will be about another 2.5 hours of work. We're hoping to finish everything by noon Pacific, 3 Eastern time today. Now, some rules. We really want everybody to be able to use the information that we're collecting today, but we really want everybody to be able to speak freely. What this means is that neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers should be revealed. Please do not take a quote from somebody and say, Simon said such and such in the SIlicon Salon. At least not without directly asking Simon in advance. You said such and such. Can I quote you directly? That's okay. But please don't take anything out of context. We're going to be recording the presentations that are being done today for YouTube, but we will not be sharing the Q&A of those presentations, nor will we be sharing the discussions that we have afterward. We do have recording on right now, but that's simply to help us produce an anonymized summary, which we'll be making available soon. The summary will include quotes, but not names and affiliations. There will also be an opportunity in the next day or so, if you wish to review that and have something removed that you felt, oop, I said a little too much there, and we'll be glad to remove any of those types of things. So the collaborative document that I shared earlier is where we're taking a lot of those notes as well. Please feel free to, if you've got any concerns or questions or whatever, you can clean that up there. So we're going to go into the presentations part of our program right now.